Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the First Unitarian Society of Milwaukee's online worship service. I'm Reverend Dina McFeeters, and I'm honored to serve as Associate Minister. We welcome people of all genders, sexualities, ages, races, ethnicities, histories, and bodies. We welcome your mind, your heart, and your spirit. We welcome all that you are carrying with you today and all that your heart longs to set down. We'd like to pay a special welcome to guests joining us today. If you are visiting for the first time or joining us from afar, why don't you say hello in the chat and tell us where you're joining us from? I'm delighted to introduce our pulpit guest this morning. The Reverend Dr. Sophia Betancourt serves as Interim Associate Dean of Academic Affairs at Drew University Theological School. She holds a PhD in Religious Ethics and African American Studies from Yale University. Her academic work focuses on environmental ethics of liberation in a womanist and Latina feminist frame. She served for 4 years as the Director of Racial and Ethnic Concerns of the Unitarian Universalist Association, and briefly as its interim co-president. Betancourt's ministry centers on work that is empowering and counter-oppressive. Sophia, it's great to have you in our virtual pulpit. Welcome. I'd welcome everyone to our worship service by inviting you to repeat our mission after me. We gather to nurture the spirit, engage the mind, and inspire action.
Good morning. I'm the Reverend Dr. Sophia Betancourt. It is my privilege to be with you this morning. We are here together in the chapel at Drew University's Theological School. I know there's some wind noise behind us, and I would ask you, in the hopes that you can still hear my voice, to know that that is our filtration system. Because we are live on campus, this is part of our communal care for one another in these COVID times. I'm delighted to be with you today. Our opening words this morning come from the Reverend Kristen Grassel-Schmidt. She writes, "The Jewish New Year commemorates the creation of the world, the bringing forth of order where once there was only chaos, the birth of the building blocks of life. As Jews among and beyond us prepare to celebrate Rosh Hashanah tomorrow, let us celebrate. Let us marvel. Let us be awestruck, because the same force that brought our planet into being, the same force that evolved tiny atoms and molecules and DNA into intelligent life, that same force is still at work in the universe and in us, always bringing about new creations. Breath of life, breathe in us, with us, and through us this day. As we gather, one in community, one in commitment to truth, love, and justice, open our minds and hearts for the new that's always being created within and among us. Come, my friends, let us celebrate, let us marvel, let us be filled with awe. Come, let us worship together." Beloveds, I invite you to join me in the spirit of meditation and prayer. Spirit of holiness and mystery of life, God of many names and one abundant love, we gather today across space and time. We gather in a difficult season, one shaped by floods, one shaped by illness, one shaped by an ever-abiding need for togetherness, for support, for carefulness, and for care. We are heading into Labor Day, in addition to the Jewish High Holy Days. This season reminds us not only of our rights as workers, but of the immense gift of those who have labored for 18 months for our well-being. For all of you, in the essential reality of your labor, as partner, beloved, homekeeper, parent, teacher, chaplain, doctors, nurses, sanitation workers, tired clergy persons, governmental officials, everyone in these days that is laboring for our safety, for our food, for our health, for our well-being, for our continued presence on the planet. May we pause on Monday. May we pause every day to honor farmers and plumbers and electricians and authors and dancers and musicians who keep our spirits lifted in these times. May each one of you, in all that you offer to this world, find a breath of respite, find shelter from the storm. May you know that your labors do not go unnoticed, and that we, the collective we, will continue to organize, to fight, to celebrate, that you in your working might be whole. To all of our beloveds impacted by Ida, by COVID, by earthquakes and storms, know that we hold you in our care. We hold your family members and loved ones in our care. We hold this community and its leaders in our care. May we together be blessed and be a blessing. Amen. Ashe. Blessed be.
Good morning. My name is Jeff Piercy, and I am pleased to be the worship associate for today's service. Over the last decade, I have used my camera to tell stories of marginalized people all over the world. All of these projects have roots firmly sourced in Unitarian Universalism. My work has been shaped by our theology. Sometimes, though, this work challenges the principles that I love from our faith. Last month, I was documenting the ongoing work in a village hospital in Sierra Leone. It was my fourth visit to this village. As a warning, the story includes references to life and death of children. If that subject is upsetting to you, then please mute me through the rest of the story. Following the service, I will be in the virtual coffee hour. The baby died, sucking for oxygen through an oversized adult mask because there were no infant-sized oxygen masks. The tube connected to a 10-liter oxygen generator that shut off when solar power was exhausted in the middle of the night, and the diesel generator failed to start. I was sleeping in a hot, humid room with a small fan blowing hot air around. I woke immediately when the fan quit in the middle of the night. Oh God, I breathed as I lay in the bed staring at the ceiling, counting my breaths to pass the time, waiting for the generator to start and the weak fan to resume. Knowing that each minute that passed was a minute that the baby was without oxygen to maintain her little life. The baby died. I was in Sierra Leone earlier this month photographing and documenting the amazing progress that the organization I work with has made in this small village hospital in Malawi. I photographed an abdominal surgery and a crude surgical theater. Many people are returned to health here. When I work in Africa, I am always struck how the accident of birth has placed me in the United States as a white male of enormous privilege. I am surrounded by a supportive community. My wife, Jerry, she's my soulmate, is a constant source of love and support. There's a group of UU men who I see every week. They are my best friends. Even in the Zoom atmosphere of church, I am nurtured. Someday soon, we will be meeting in person again, and I'll be able to touch some of you. The community steals me for the work that I do in Africa. It sustains me through its love expressed in my closest confidants. It will heal my bruises. It is easy to live my values in the privileged existence in Milwaukee. In Africa, the baby was admitted earlier that day and taken to the bare room that serves as an emergency room. My friend, Augusta Olofsdotter, was a visiting physician from Christ Hospital in Chicago. The baby had malaria and malnutrition. She had retained significant urine and her bladder was swollen. There are no infant-sized catheters to provide relief. There was no infant-sized mask to provide oxygen, so an adult-sized one was fitted over her full face. Her arms and legs were dehydrated, and the IV needles were adult-sized and too large. Finally, a skilled lab tech was able to insert a line in her scalp. Medication and nutrients began to flow. The hospital has one 5-liter oxygen concentrator and one 10-liter. The 10-liter was used in another room with a 58-year-old woman with pneumonia. The baby needed it. The oxygen generators were switched. Dr. Olofsdotter said, "We will keep the woman as comfortable as possible, but this decision means she will die." 58 is considered a long, full life in Sierra Leone. When resources are scarce and care must be rationed, it challenges my love of our principles that all life has inherent worth and dignity. Sometimes I think that our theology is based on an assumption of abundance. It is a struggle to make sense of life and death in scarcity. Who's worthy to be saved? William F. Schultz, a former head of UUSC and prior to that with Amnesty International, wrote in the UU World magazine of 2006, "It is the worth and dignity of every person inherent." No, inherency is a construct, a useful myth, perhaps, but a myth nonetheless. Each of us has to be assigned worth and taught to behave with dignity. So who does the assigning of worth? Well, in the village on those 2 days, it was 2 physicians and myself who determined who was worthy. The 58-year-old woman died that afternoon. Due to the lack of appropriate equipment, the baby died that night. I'm back now, surrounded by privilege and far more important by the sustaining love of my friends. I don't expect our faith to provide answers. For now, it is enough that it provides space for me to ask questions and engage in the thorny discussions of a life where answers are not found in bright-line definitions.
This is the time of year when I am in awe at the height of corn stalks, the abundance of tomatoes, the endless generosity of zucchini, and the lush abundance of green in farms and gardens. I remember how such bounty began with just the promise of seeds, small enough to get lost in the gaps between my fingers. In difficult times, I turn my spirit to this physical reminder of the possibility of life. Our living tradition invites us into the lifelong work of Unitarian Universalism by placing our own being, our own knowing of self, into the palms of our hands like seeds. And we are tasked, like gardeners, to nurture the seeming impossibility of something so tiny, facing all of the realities of life that surround it and growing into full resplendence that sustains new life. We are tasked with growing ourselves from seed. Theologians over the centuries have long debated this labor, and we inherit their weighty questions about the meaning of human nature, the extent to which our own choices impact our lived experiences, what it means to live into our own goodness, how best to pursue love and justice in the world, and who or what calls us forth into all that we are meant to become. Our tradition centers on the meaning and calling of our human existence, and how we live into our values and how we allow those values to shape our lives provides an ongoing foundation to our theologies. So how do we hold fast to that labor when so much in daily living feels hard? I am mindful this week that we were confronted with immense loss, that Hurricane Ida offered a haunting reminder of Katrina and a terrible witness to the devastation that comes from economic injustice. I am carrying the profound consequences of seemingly endless wars and the visions of rescue, but also devastation in Afghanistan. My heart is with our dedicated military service members and the complexity of all that they sacrifice. The entire nation of Haiti remains on my heart this day, not as an impoverished country, but as one filled with pride, the first to liberate itself from the horrors of enslavement, the one most punished by colonizers for daring to be free. Haiti, still in recovery from another tremendous earthquake. And my daily prayer is a global one for healing and wholeness as the pandemic continues to change all that we know. And still, in the midst of so much struggle, the seeds of our own being remain in the palms of our hands. So who are we called to be in such moments? How do we do anything but grieve for the world? The prophetic work of Howard Thurman, founder of the first interfaith congregation in the United States, and rightly remembered as the spiritual heart of the civil rights movement, offers us simple yet powerful reminders of the work of living our faith in these times, what some in traditional theological language might call discipleship. As I have said before, discipleship is simply the choice to practice Unitarian Universalism every day, to be open to how its teachings might change us, to engage in the spiritual practices that remind us of its message, and to risk expanding what we know. We are not pledging ourselves to a single leader or teacher or even a particular rhetoric, but instead to the work of faithfulness itself. And we support that risk-taking, justice-promoting, love-embracing faith by daily practice, by the careful nurturing of seeds. We do not just dedicate ourselves to daily engagement with Unitarian Universalism because of our commitments to this movement or to one another. We do it because repeated practice, repeated questioning, careful tending of our faith offers us strength in the face of the unknown and grounds us in difficult times. In describing how easy it is to forget why living into practice is so important, Howard Thurman famously offers us this prayer as weary gardeners of the Spirit. Keep fresh before me the moments of my high resolve, that in fair weather or in foul, in good times or in tempests, in the days when the darkness and the foe are nameless or familiar, I may not forget that to which my life is committed. This kind of mindfulness is a large part of why we gather in worship together, and why it has been so important to stay connected in this time of increased physical separation. What is so important about Thurman's prayer is that it is at its core a request for help. It is almost a plea. As a liberal Christian seeking spiritual community across a range of beliefs, Thurman is no doubt asking for assistance from the God of his understanding. He knows that clarity of mind is critical for his own journey and well-being. In his longer prayer, he acknowledges how easy it is for him to forget those moments in between the times of clarity, in the regular toil and trouble of life. This mindfulness invites us to hold close what most calls us forward in our living, in between the times when that clarity is so present as to crack our hearts wide open with awe. In Meditations of the Heart, Howard Thurman reflects on the words of a Hindu poet who is reminding us that by dedicating our lives to the holy, to God, To that very best essence expressed in our humanity, we are offering our best selves to the betterment of the world. Thurman writes, "The struggle for bread and shelter continues to the very end, to beat at our lives and our very spirits with an insistence that cannot be ignored. For many, there are additional cares that go beyond the demands of our own personal survival and encompass the tender threads of the lives of others to whom we are bound by ties of blood and birth. Beyond all this, there are areas in common life in which we must do our part in order that the very fabric of society may be maintained against collapse and disintegration. There are dreams, hopes, and yearnings which possess our lives, calling us away from the usual round and the common tasks. In the midst of all these pressures, and many more, life for us becomes entangled and again bogs down. There comes a moment when we are in utter revolt, when something deep within us becomes tired, weary, exhausted, and finally outraged. And what we long for in that deep anxiety is some haven, some place of retreat, some time of quiet where our bruised and shredded spirits may find healing and restoration. If I make of my life an offering and a dedication to God, then this dedication will include all of my entanglements and involvements. And there follows then a radical change over my entire landscape, and miraculously, I am free again at my center. It is for this reason that it is well, again and again, to re-establish my dedication, to make repeatedly an offering of my life. I ask myself in these days about what we are tending at the core of this faith that we love. In these times when it feels as if war might never cease, when our impact on the planet grows with each passing day, when we struggle time and again in our efforts to love one another across our differences, how will we maintain faithful vigil and show up in prophetic witness for a better world? Who will cry out when our voices start to tire? What will shake us out of our complacency and raise before our eyes once again those moments of our high resolve? Because, beloveds, I know that we are weary. Many of us are in profound need of communities like this one, in profound need for connection and compassion in our living, and the labor of that connection, of communal care, or of simply offering love in the face of the unimaginable, is reshaping us in new ways. This week, one of our beloved UU ministers who serves a congregation in Louisiana asked us, his colleagues, to record messages of support for their local congregations in the region. He reminded us that Ida was both historic and hauntingly familiar, that multiple storms had landed on that very same day over the years, leaving our loved ones fearful and in need of the simplest touch of love. We were asked to record just a sentence or two, to simply remind UUs and others in Louisiana that we witness their struggle, that we care about their well-being, that we are sending not only resources through trusted community organizations, but most importantly, that we are sending our love, unceasing. You know, I worry that in our exhaustion, in the face of an ongoing pandemic, with the struggles in our own lives and challenges around the globe, that we might start to believe that love is a rare and precious resource. It is precious. It is not rare. That we might believe it is something to hold back or ration in these times. I worry that we will feel in our tiredness as if love is not enough, that if we do not have funds to send or time to organize or to invest in refuge and repair, we might feel as if we have nothing at all to offer. But I know that each time we light a chalice, each time our children and youth record parts of a Sunday sermon, each time we participate in learning together, each time members of our communities reach out to one another to share smiles, photos of our cats, stray zucchinis from the garden, each time, every time, we are renewed in our knowing that love is the center of this community, that it inspires our compassion and commits us to the work of justice in all of its forms. In love, our faith is made real every single day. And on the days when love is too much to ask, and there will be and have been those days, may we rest in the knowledge that someone else in this community can hold us in that love until we are able to pick that precious resource up for ourselves once again. As a gardener, I know that it requires love to be a co-conspirator in the thriving of plant life. Love to believe that a seed the size of a grain of sand might, with water and sun and nutrients enough, grow with abundance, produce an array of blooms, and shower us once again with the tiniest grains of new life. Growing ourselves from seed means that we work, like Howard Thurman, to stay present to the values that we most cherish in our living tradition, to nurture them until they grow like a canopy that might shelter us in times of need. And in the process, that we might just become the people we most long to be. May we tend to our growth generously. May we do so in community, so that all we are becoming may be shaped by the lived experiences and the wisdom of those around us. May we simply love one another in these difficult days and allow that love to shape communal care between and among us. And may we return to this abundance whenever hope feels far away, so that together, every day, we might thrive. May it be so. Amen. Ashe, and blessed be.
One seed is all it takes to grow a forest. One candle can light a dark room. One voice is enough, speaking words of love. Each moment becomes what we choose. Do you want a new world? A world that works for everyone? Open your heart and let it be. We can become the new world. Mother Earth beneath the sky. She's waiting for you and for me. our dreams light the path for us to walk on. Our songs help our spirits align, and each little child helps remind us why we not only might, we must thrive. Do you want a new world, a world that works for everyone? Open your life and let it be. We can become the new world, Mother Earth beneath the sky. She's waiting for you and for me to be a new world. With just this thought, it has begun. Now don't you wanna see a new world, your Mother Earth beneath the great sky, counting on you and me to be a new world, to be the new world.
Thank you all so much for your generosity. Pledges are the core of our church's spiritual practice of generosity. We are also grateful for additional gifts to support our ministry and thank the folks out there who are appreciating this online ministry and supporting it by texting 73256 with the message "Give to UU," or by giving on our website. Your gifts help us continue to provide this ministry. We also share the plate with an organization each month. The nonprofit Nehemiah Project is our summer Share the Plate recipient. With 2 facilities in Milwaukee, the Nehemiah Project works with teens and young men, 13 to 20 years old, who have served their sentence and are preparing to return to their families. Its mission is to promote the physical and emotional well-being of youth through psychological, educational, leadership, and transitional living services in a residential community. They accept clothing items, furniture, financial donations, and offer volunteer opportunities. To make a donation directly to the Nehemiah Project, please visit their website. They also accept donations over the phone. You can see all these options on your screen now, and they will live on in the YouTube comments section of this video after worship is over. Thank you so much for giving, right now, or when you come back later. Your support keeps us and our community partners going. Thank you.
Our closing words come from the Reverend Wayne Arneson. Take courage, friends. The way is often hard, the path is never clear, and the stakes are very high. Take courage, for deep down there is another truth. You are not alone. Be in peace in the coming days. Amen.
We are going, heaven knows where we are going. We know within, and we will get there. Heaven knows how we will get there, but we know we will. Whoa, yeah, yeah. Whoa, yeah, yeah. Whoa, yeah, yeah. Whoa, yeah, yeah.